Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. Entitled mother spent an hour shopping while their child screamed the entire time, then tried to exchange clothes from over a year ago to pay for the clothes she picked out that day. Strap in y'all, this is my favorite story to share from my time in retail. This lady was absolutely bonkers. It's hella long but worth the read in my opinion. So this happened a few years ago when I was working part-time at a clothing outlet. Let's just say that this company sells higher-end clothing and caters almost exclusively to Karens. My life was heck for those 2 years. God bless those who work there full-time, you are the real heroes. Let me start by saying this was a Saturday shift in a crowded shopping mall, and I was working a double to cover for a coworker. I had recently been promoted to shift lead, so I was the manager on duty that day and was closing. Fast forward to the end of the day was insane, and by the end of it, both my coworker and I were exhausted. We were tidying up the store and taking care of all the go-backs when I heard the door open. It was 8:53. We close at 9. Enter entitled mother and entitled kid. Typically, if we have customers that come in that late, it's to grab a gift card or something. We do have the occasional shopper that comes right before close and stays a while, but they are typically quick when they realize that they are the only ones there holding us up. Not tonight. The first thing I notice is that entitled kid is screaming. Like, it sounds like someone is ripping off his arms level screams. I walk up to greet entitled mother over the sounds of her screaming offspring. Good evening, ma'am. Is there something that I can help you find today? No thanks, just browsing. The worst answer. Okay, well, let me know if you need any help with anything before I close the dressing rooms. My little way of insinuating that it's late and I want to go home. Well, I'll definitely need a dressing room. Can you go ahead and start one for me? Me yelling at this point over the sounds of entitled kid screaming. Sure thing. Sorry about him. He's had a long day. Haven't we all? As I walk away, I notice that entitled mother has a trash bag full of clothes underneath the stroller that is carting around her screaming toddler. Odd, but whatever. Maybe she has a Goodwill donation. For the next hour and a half, this woman tries on every article of clothing in the store. Per corporate policy, we can't rush guests as they shop as long as they come in before close. We tried everything. Turning off the music, sweeping the floor, closing the 2 out of 3 registers, etc. Pretty much all the indicators that we are closed and to get the F out. And yet, she stayed. And her kid screamed for an hour of it before he fell asleep. At around 10:30, she is ready to check out. I have my coworker start to ring her up so I can get closing started in the back and get us the heck out of there. I'm in the stockroom when I hear the screams. TM. I rush out and I find this lady screaming at coworker, who is one of the nicest people I've ever known and is crying at this point. What seems to be the problem? Anything I can help with? Yes, you can fire this idiot because she's treating me like absolute garbage. I don't think corporate will be very happy to hear how their employees are treating paying customers. Coworker looks at me with tear-filled eyes. Coworker, will you go to the back and finish the online orders for me? I'll take care of entitled mother. Okay, ma'am, what can I help you with? Well, I was trying to get these clothes returned so I can put the credit towards my purchase. Entitled mother then takes the full garbage bag of clothes and dumps it out in front of me. Technically, the clothes inside the bag were all from the store where I worked. However, they were all a year older or more. Clearly well worn, no tags. Ma'am, I'm so sorry, but you cannot return these. What? Why not? Well, for one, they don't have any tags, you don't have a receipt, and they clearly have been washed and worn by you for quite some time. Returns are typically recent purchases that don't quite fit. Well, these don't fit me anymore, so I would like to return them, said in a very condescending tone. Our return policy is 30 days, and it can't be washed, and you need a tag or receipt. Can't you just give me store credit? No, I cannot. You can try resale shops if you want to, but we aren't a thrift store. These pieces aren't even in production anymore. I'm not an idiot. I know these clothes are from a while ago because I'm the one who bought them. They don't fit me anymore because I was busy creating human life and now I need new clothes. She gestures to her poor, exhausted child, who has at this point woken up and begun to scream again. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I still can't accept these as returns. Can I help you purchase the clothes you picked out today?" "Like heck you can't. I have had a long day and deserve this. I can't afford to buy these without returning my old clothes." "Then I don't know what I can do for you." "You can get me your manager." Me, full of satisfaction. "I'm the manager on the floor tonight." "Well then you are so screwed. I'm calling corporate to report you and your coworker." "Here's their number. Call center opens tomorrow at 7 a.m. Entitled mother's mouth dropped. Pretty sure she didn't expect me to be so cavalier about getting reported, but I did not give a single F at this point. She was quiet for a moment and took a deep breath and asked if I could help her bag up her old clothes to take with her so she could give her screaming child a snack. I was pretty shocked at the abrupt mood change, but whatever. I'm exhausted and want to leave so bad. I started bagging up her old clothes when she reached down to grab her kid's snack. As I'm putting the clothes on the bag, she reaches over the counter, grabs the clothes she was going to purchase, and then runs towards the door. I just stand there because it's against our policy to stop people from shoplifting anyway, and I've locked the doors to prevent other people from coming in. She gets to the doors and violently yanks the handle back and forth, trying to open them. I calmly walk over. "Let me out!" "Sure thing." I hold out my hands for the clothes. She glares at me, then wisely decides it's not worth it. She shoves the clothes at me and turns away, muttering obscenities at me as she does so. I unlock the door and she leaves. As if that encounter wasn't crazy enough, she actually called corporate to complain after literally trying to shoplift from our store. What a wild ride. What a wild ride indeed. What would you have said to this Karen if you were in OP's shoes after they epically failed to get out of the store when trying to shoplift? Let me know your response in the comments below. I used to think some of these entitled parent stories were fake until I encountered the most entitled mother ever today. I'm a parent, and when I read some of these entitled parent stories, I think there is no possible way someone is that entitled. Then today it happened. I encountered an entitled mom, and now I've been humbled because I realize I was wrong. There are some crazy entitled people out there. Today I had to go to the grocery store as our family is low on food. It's warm here, so I wore a tank top and jeans. I'm also type 1 diabetic and wear an insulin pump with a continuous glucose monitor. You can see the monitor on my arm. I'm at the store when my pump starts beeping, alerting me that my insulin is getting low in my pump. So I pull out the pump and silence the alarm. I hear a kid behind me say, "Mommy, that looks like a cool toy, can I get it?" I ignore it until I hear entitled mother, "Excuse me, I need your video game," as she is tapping me on my shoulder. "Ma'am, I do not have a video game with me." "Of course you do, I see it in your pocket there. You're too old for video games, give it to my kid." "Ma'am, you are mistaken, that is a medical device and I couldn't finish because she reached over and grabbed my pump. I smacked her hand, but she had a death grip on my pump and ended up pulling it out of my body. I started screaming, telling her there is a needle at the end of the tubing and she needs to be careful that her kid doesn't get hurt. Employees come running into the aisle and start asking what happened. "This crazy person just pulled this thing out and tried to stab my kid with a needle on it. I want them arrested." "Actually, that is my insulin pump, but you pulled it out of me because you thought it was a video game," as I'm bleeding from where she pulled it out from onto my shirt. Shortening a long story, entitled mother insists I came after her because I'm crazy and hate children. Police are called because she wants to press charges. Police review tapes, see that I'm telling the truth, and arrest entitled mother. I leave without my groceries because my pump is freaking out that my sugar is rapidly rising, as I don't have it inserted in my body, giving me a steady stream of insulin. Just tapping this post up has me shaking my head because it seems made up, and if it didn't happen to me, I would question it. People are so dumb. If somebody says this is a medical anything, I would make sure they finish that sentence first. And then you know that you did the offending thing and then try to press charges? That's not gonna work out for you. I don't understand. Entitled mother tries to get me fired. When I was 16, I worked as a hostess for a restaurant. I had a lot of fun interacting with the kids and helping such nice customers. I was familiar with some of our regulars who were delightful people, and had very few hard customers. But we had one who was just terrible. This woman and her 8 kids come in one day while I'm on shift for lunch, a particularly busy Sunday afternoon. I loved kids, so I looked forward to helping these folks, or maybe even striking conversations while they waited for a seat. I greeted them with my peppy, "Hi, welcome to Friendly's. How many will be joining us today?" The woman, who had a Karen vibe flowing from her, looked at me and said, "Oh, hello, you must be new. It'll be 9 of us, 1 adult, 8 children." I nodded and pointed out we were busy, which should have been obvious, and told her I could put her down for a wait list, and that it would only be 5 minutes for a large table, since all the larger groups had been finishing. The lady looks at me and says, "What about our table?" I was confused, because we had no call-ahead reservations. They would be written on my podium if there was, so I asked, "I'm sorry, did you call ahead?" She looked almost offended at the question. She shook her head and said, No, we come every Sunday at 12 p.m. There is always a table saved for us." She pointed to a table in the center of the dining room and said, "That one right there, it's always free and clean and ready for us. Did you give our table away?" I didn't understand. Nobody told me about a woman who comes in every Sunday at 12 p.m. with 8 kids. I also wasn't aware we saved tables for people unless they called ahead. Maybe she did call ahead and it got lost somewhere. Or one of the servers didn't inform me we had a reservation. "I'm sorry, there was no reservation made for that table. Did you reserve it?" I asked, doing my best to sound professional while working through what the problem was. "No, we don't call ahead. That table is always available at 12 p.m. on Sunday. It is our table." That confused me more. Did they assume the table was theirs because it was open every Sunday? Did they assume the waitstaff saved them a table each time? As a new worker and a kid, I was worried I had done something wrong. None of the waitstaff came to me saying not to seat at that table, nor did the waitress whose section it was alert me that table 18 was special. I was super worried, thinking that it was my fault, that I accidentally gave this woman's table away. Miss, we want our lunch," one of the lady's kids said to me. The woman, after hearing her child pipe up, raised her voice and said, "Yes, miss, we want our lunch. I cannot believe you gave our table away. How dare you?" She grabbed one of her sons by the shoulders, pulling him in front of her. "Do you see how hungry my children are? This is your fault." The people seated began to get quiet and stare. And looking back on it now, it was probably her goal to make an audience. I'm sorry, miss, she cuts me off. No, I do not want excuses. You gave away our table, that table was for us. My children are hungry. You are negligent and obviously not competent enough to work as a hostess. If you're giving customers saved seats away, perhaps you'd be better as a dishwasher, or at a job where common sense isn't a necessity," she yelled. I felt so ashamed. The whole restaurant was staring at me and whispering. I think someone was recording too, but I'm not sure. Before I could speak, she hollered, "Manager, I want a manager. Hello, manager?" My manager and friend of the family, who I will call Mel, rushes to the front and says, "Is everything okay, ma'am?" "Absolutely not. Your employee gave away our table. I don't know where you find these new employees, but this is ridiculous." I stood there so embarrassed. My manager looked at me, then to the woman and said, "I'm sorry, what was the name of the reservation?" The woman's jaw dropped. She took a close look at my manager's name tag before finishing. "Mel, we come here every Sunday at 12 p.m. And every Sunday at 12 p.m. there is a table open for us. Maybe you should have told..." She looked at my name tag before finishing. "OP before sitting people." My manager shook her head. "Well, Sundays at 12 p.m. we usually aren't this busy, so I could understand how you'd be able to sit at the same table each time. However, because of the Big E, Eastern States Expo, we are very busy. I'm sorry, but you'll have to wait." "I refuse to wait. You know we come here every Sunday at 12 p.m. We should not have to call ahead because OP gave our table away." Mel remained professional, replying, "Ma'am, it isn't your table. You didn't call ahead and reserve it. It wasn't given away. It was open when we had a large group, so OP sat the group. If you didn't call to reserve it, we can't reserve it." "But we always sit here on Sundays at 12 p.m. the woman hollered. Mel, who somehow kept calm while this lunatic yelled at her, replied, "Ma'am, if you continue to disrupt our guests, we will ask you to leave." The woman shut her mouth, looking around at the people dining, who had then changed their gaze to her. She said, I demand we get our meal paid for because of this situation. Or free kids' meals. I want my kids' meals paid for. I'm sorry, but we won't be doing that. You harassed my staff and disrupted my customers. Please leave the restaurant. This is where it gets crazy. Fair warning. The lady was so upset she basically began calling racism, saying we weren't sitting her because she was white, and that because I was Spanish, I'm not Spanish, black and white mix, that I was discriminating. Mel, who is white, firmly said, "You will either leave or I will call the police. Please leave." The woman pulled out her phone dramatically. "Oh, you're gonna call the police? I don't think so. I am going to call the police and you will be getting shut down. And everyone will be fired and arrested," she said as she dialed on her phone and called the police. Keep in mind, she had like 4 children under 5 who looked terrified. One was even crying. The police showed up, and to spare you the whole Sunday at 12 p.m. stuff, the woman was escorted out. They almost arrested her because of the scene she was making. Mel said she didn't want the woman back, and if she did, she would be trespassing. After that, the day went on normally, with Mel offering discounts to everyone who had to endure it. Only 2 people took the offering. I continued to work there for about 2 months before I moved on. I'm still friends with all the staff and we still joke about it today. I don't know if the woman ever went back. Update, so I texted my old manager to see whatever happened with this lady. Apparently she came back not once, not twice, but 3 times and got banned from another location. She went back the first time when I had already left and basically did the same thing with the other hostess who is now a waitress. That girl is my favorite. Once tipped her a $20 for a $40 meal, just loved her that much. Before the police were called, she ran out and said she'd be back. The second time she came with her husband, who was an officer of the law. He was a security guard. Best bit, a patron knew her, and apparently her and her husband were married for years. But not all of the kids were his. She wasn't arrested but cited. I think the officer took pity on the children and didn't want to see their mother dragged off to jail. Third time, Mel wasn't on the shift. She planned this too. Sadly for this woman, the whole staff had been alerted to call the police if this lady came back. The other manager, Vicky, who was having none of it, said, "Sure, one moment please," went to the back and called the police. Went back to the woman and struck up friendly conversation while the staff was preparing the table. They were not. She was promptly arrested in front of those poor kids. As far as me and Mel know, she hasn't returned, but did call corporate. Nothing came of it because corporate never visited or cited the restaurant. Also, for everyone who knows Friendlies and the Big E, love you guys. Didn't know how many people would have known of either. Why was going to this restaurant so special to this person? I just don't understand why one specific restaurant would ever be enough to risk getting arrested multiple times and then eventually getting arrested. Why? I guess it was just the lack of IQ points or something, I don't know. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today, so what I want to know is which of these stories was your personal favorite and why? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you all so much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.